December 2020 was a bitterly cold month, and the streets of the bustling city mirrored the frost in the air. The holiday season was in full swing. Shop windows glimmered with festive decorations, and the aroma of roasted chestnuts mixed with the faint scent of snow. Among the cheer and celebrations, a lone figure trudged down the icy pavement, his coat frayed and his shoes barely holding together. Michael, a man in his mid-30s, had once been like the people he now saw around him, full of life and energy, with dreams that had felt achievable. But the pandemic had taken everything from him. First, it was his job, a stable position at a small accounting firm. Then, as his savings dwindled, he lost his apartment. With no family to turn to and no friends left who could help, he had spent the past months surviving on the streets, enduring hunger and the bitter cold. That evening, his stomach growled louder than usual. Days had passed since he last had a decent meal, and his strength was waning. As he passed by a lively restaurant, the sounds of clinking cutlery and the hum of laughter reached his ears. The warmth of the lights spilling out from the large glass windows seemed to mock his suffering. Yet despite his shame, desperation compelled him to push open the heavy glass door. Inside, the restaurant was bustling with activity. Waiters darted between tables, balancing trays laden with steaming dishes. The rich scent of roasted meats, freshly baked bread, and spiced desserts filled the air, making Michael's mouth water. His eyes scanned the room nervously, taking in the scene of people indulging in the comfort he could only dream of. Approaching the nearest waiter, Michael hesitated for a moment. The young man looked sharp in his crisp uniform, a faint air of impatience about him as he jotted down orders. Summoning every ounce of courage he had left, Michael spoke in a trembling voice. "Excuse me, sir," he began, his tone hesitant. I haven't eaten in days. Is there any chance I could get something to eat? Anything at all? I don't have money, but—" The waiter interrupted him with a dismissive wave, his expression hardening as he glanced at Michael's shabby clothes and unkempt appearance. "This isn't a charity," he said coldly, his voice loud enough to draw the attention of nearby diners. "If you don't have money, you don't get food. Simple as that." The sting of the words hit Michael like a blow. The room seemed to blur as the humiliation sank in, and he felt the weight of judgment from the eyes that now lingered on him. A couple at a nearby table chuckled softly, their amusement at his expense adding to his shame. "I'm sorry," Michael mumbled, his gaze fixed on the floor. He turned toward the door, ready to disappear into the cold night. But just as his hand reached for the handle, a deep voice called out from across the room. "Hey, wait a minute." Michael froze, unsure if the words were meant for him. He turned slowly, his eyes landing on a tall, muscular man sitting at a corner table. Dressed casually in a plain black t-shirt and jeans, the man exuded a quiet confidence. Though Michael didn't recognize him immediately, others in the restaurant certainly did. Whispers rippled through the room as people began to notice who had spoken. The man stood towering over the other patrons and walked toward Michael. His presence was commanding, yet his expression was kind. "What's going on here?" he asked, addressing the waiter who had turned pale upon recognizing him. Mr. Johnson," the waiter stammered, his previous arrogance replaced with nervousness. "I didn't mean any harm, it's just, this man doesn't have money and that gives you the right to treat him like this?" Dwayne Johnson interrupted, his tone sharp but controlled. "What kind of place are you running where someone can't ask for help without being humiliated?" The waiter fumbled for a response but couldn't find one. The room was silent now, every eye fixed on the unfolding scene. Dwayne turned to Michael, his expression softening. "Come with me," he said, guiding him back to the corner table where he had been sitting. "Sit down. You don't have to leave like that." Michael hesitated, unsure of what to say. "I don't want to cause trouble," he murmured. "You're not causing trouble," Dwayne assured him. "You're just hungry. Let me help." He signaled to the waiter, who quickly approached the table, his demeanor now entirely different. "Bring him the best meal you have on the menu," Dwayne instructed, pulling out his wallet and handing over his credit card. "And make it quick." The waiter nodded and hurried off, eager to avoid further confrontation. As they waited for the food, Michael glanced at Dwayne, a mix of gratitude and confusion in his eyes. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly. Dwayne smiled. Because everyone deserves kindness, Michael. I've been fortunate in my life, but I've also had my share of struggles. I know what it's like to feel like the world is against you. Sometimes all it takes is one person to show you that it's not. For the first time in months, Michael felt a flicker of hope. The warmth of Dwayne's words and the generosity of his actions touched him deeply. When the food arrived, a plate piled high with roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and steamed vegetables, Michael couldn't hold back his tears. He thanked Dwayne profusely before diving into the meal, savoring every bite as if it were the last he'd ever have. As Michael ate, Dwayne leaned back in his chair, observing him thoughtfully. He could see the exhaustion in Michael's eyes, the toll that months of hardship had taken on him. And yet there was something else, a glimmer of resilience, a hint of strength that hadn't been entirely extinguished. "You mentioned you don't have a job," Dwayne said after a while. "What kind of work did you do before?" "I was an accountant," Michael replied between bites. "But when the pandemic hit, the firm I worked for had to downsize. I was one of the first to go. After that, things just fell apart." Dwayne nodded, his mind working quickly. "You're clearly someone who's willing to work hard. Let me see what I can do to help you get back on your feet." Michael looked up, startled. "You've already done so much," he said. "I can't ask for more." "You're not asking," Dwayne said firmly. "I'm offering. And trust me, it's not about charity. It's about giving someone a fair chance. Everyone deserves that." Before Michael could respond, the restaurant manager approached the table, his expression a mix of nervousness and curiosity. "Mr. Johnson," he began, "is everything all right?" "No, everything is not all right," Dwayne replied, his tone firm but measured. "This man came here for help, and instead of treating him with dignity, your staff humiliated him. Is that how you want your establishment to be known?" The manager's face reddened. I, I apologize for the behavior of my staff," he said quickly. "An apology is a start," Dwayne said, "but you have an opportunity to do more. Give him a job. Even if it's just a trial for a week, let him prove himself. He's been an accountant before, so I'm sure he's capable of handling something here." The manager hesitated, clearly unsure. But the growing crowd of onlookers, all supportive of Dwayne's words, seemed to sway him. "All right," he said finally. "We can give him a chance, but only on a trial basis." Michael couldn't believe what he was hearing. His heart raced as he looked from Dwayne to the manager. I, I don't know how to thank you," he stammered. "Thank me by showing them what you're capable of," Dwayne said with a smile. The following morning, Michael arrived at the restaurant, his heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and determination. The events of the previous evening still felt surreal, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he might wake up to find it had all been a dream. Clad in a clean uniform provided by the restaurant, he stepped into the bustling kitchen. The clatter of pots and pans, the hiss of steam, and the aroma of freshly prepared dishes greeted him. The manager, Mr. Ross, met him near the staff lockers. Though he had reluctantly agreed to give Michael a chance, his skepticism was evident. "You'll start as a dishwasher," he said curtly. "It's a demanding job, and we expect you to keep up. Prove yourself, and we'll see if there's room for you here." "Understood?" Michael nodded earnestly. "Understood, sir. Thank you for this opportunity." He was introduced to the other kitchen staff, many of whom looked at him with a mix of curiosity and judgment. A young sous chef named Lisa was the first to break the ice, offering a warm smile. "Welcome to the team," she said, handing him a pair of gloves. "It's not glamorous work, but it's honest. Let me know if you need help." Grateful for her kindness, Michael got to work. The task was grueling, scrubbing greasy pans, stacking plates, and ensuring every utensil sparkled. His muscles ached, but he pushed through, determined not to squander the chance Dwayne had fought to give him. As the day went on, his efficiency and attention to detail began to stand out. By lunchtime, even the head chef, a stern man named Antonio, took notice. "Not bad for your first day," Antonio remarked, nodding approvingly. The encouragement gave Michael a renewed sense of purpose. He hadn't felt this useful in months, and though the work was far from what he was trained for, it gave him a foothold to climb out of the abyss he had fallen into. Meanwhile, Dwayne kept tabs on Michael's progress. Though his schedule was packed with filming commitments and public appearances, he made time to check in with the restaurant. On the third day of Michael's trial, Dwayne stopped by unannounced. The atmosphere shifted the moment he entered. Staff members straightened their postures and customers murmured excitedly, some even pulling out their phones to snap pictures. Dwayne, however, remained focused on finding Michael. He spotted him in the kitchen, scrubbing a stack of dishes. Michael's face lit up when he saw Dwayne, and he quickly dried his hands before stepping out to greet him. "Mr. Johnson," Michael began, but Dwayne cut him off with a chuckle. "Call me Dwayne," he said. "How's it going?" "It's, hard work," Michael admitted, "but I'm grateful for the chance. Thank you again for everything." Dwayne placed a reassuring hand on Michael's shoulder. "You're the one putting in the effort, Michael. I just opened a door. It's up to you to walk through it." During their conversation, Lisa approached with a tray of appetizers for Dwayne to sample. She took the opportunity to chime in. "He's doing great," she said, smiling at Michael. "Honestly, he's one of the hardest workers here." Michael flushed with pride at the praise, but Dwayne wasn't surprised. "I knew you had it in you," he said. "Keep it up." By the end of the week, Michael's trial period was over. Mr. Ross called him into his office, his expression neutral. Michael's stomach churned as he waited for the verdict. "You've done well," Mr. Ross said after a pause. "You're reliable, hardworking, and the staff seems to like you. We'd like to offer you a permanent position." Relief and gratitude washed over Michael. "Thank you, sir. I promise I won't let you down." With a steady income now secured, Michael began rebuilding his life piece by piece. He found a small, affordable apartment not far from the restaurant and invested in a few necessities: a mattress, some clothes, and a second-hand bicycle for commuting. Though his earnings were modest, he managed to save a little each week, determined to create a stable future for himself. As the weeks turned into months, Michael became a valued member of the restaurant team. He often stayed late to help close up, earning the respect of his colleagues. Customers began to recognize him, and his confidence grew with each passing day. Dwayne continued to check in on Michael, often surprising him with visits. During one such visit, Dwayne noticed a small change in Michael. He was standing taller, his eyes brighter. "You're a different man now," Dwayne remarked as they shared a meal after Michael's shift. "That's because of you," Michael replied. Dwayne shook his head. "No, Michael, it's because of you. You took a tough situation and turned it around. That's all you." Michael smiled, but his gratitude toward Dwayne remained unwavering. Months later, Michael had the chance to pay it forward. One cold evening, a young woman with a small child entered the restaurant. They looked exhausted, their clothes worn and thin. Michael noticed them immediately and approached with a warm smile. "Welcome," he said gently. "Can I get you something warm to eat?" The woman hesitated, glancing at her son. I don't have much money," she admitted. Michael's heart ached as he saw the same desperation he had once felt. Without a second thought, he nodded. "Don't worry about that. Please sit down, I'll take care of it." As he served them a hearty meal, Michael couldn't help but think of Dwayne and the chain of kindness that had started with him. By the end of the year, Michael's story had spread far and wide. Customers who had witnessed Dwayne's act of compassion shared it on social media, and news outlets picked it up. The restaurant became a symbol of hope and second chances, attracting visitors from across the city. Michael's journey inspired countless others, proving that a single act of kindness could ripple outward, changing lives in ways no one could predict. And as for Michael, he never forgot the lesson Dwayne had taught him. In a world often filled with indifference, kindness was the most powerful gift of all.